everybody. Jason Sherman here. In today's episode of Zero to CEO, I speak to change agent and coach Evan Unger. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Jason. Thanks for having me.
No problem. And today we're talking about your broken meetings and how to fix them and how to build stronger teams. Because in the age of the pandemic, the past 5 years, Zoom became a very profitable company because of all the meetings they've been hosting. But at the same time, everyone's been like, oh, another meeting that could have been an email. So let's talk about what the real cost of bad meetings is in the first place. Because that's really what I'm curious about.
Yeah. I mean, first of all, I've asked clients for 30 years, 2 questions. How many meetings are going to take place in your organization today? And what's the average effectiveness? And the first question, is based on the size of the organization. The second one, in 30 years, I've never had anyone say 80%. I almost always get lower than 50%. And, there's all sorts of data out there, but I've seen studies that say it costs American companies like $399 billion a year. I mean, it is one of the most fundamental.
Holy camoli, that's crazy.
Go do ChatGPT. You'll see incredible numbers because we have all these meetings.
It's so many meetings. My girlfriend works for a large pharmaceutical company, and she's constantly in meetings. And I listen. I'm not supposed to be listening. So full disclosure, I don't listen to the meetings, but I can overhear, the mumbling going on in the office. And it's just like 30 people in meetings like every hour about every single little thing that could have been an email. So first of all, why do people hate meetings so much? Let's talk about that.
Well, I think the first reason they hate them is because they're a waste of time, right? And most of them, not all of them, but most meetings are a waste of time. And people never do the math on this. Like most senior people are going to spend at least 50% of their time in meetings, which means they will literally spend a year's worth of their life in hours in meetings in under 9 years, right?
That's crazy.
And it's crazy. And it is probably the source of the most fundamental productivity loss in the organization.
And that's why people are so miserable at work, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah, because they're trying to do their real job. And it's like, I got to go to this meeting and I got to go to this meeting. And what we always encourage people to do is say, look, if someone can't tell you why they're having a meeting, what they're trying to get done, show you some sort of agenda and tell you what your role is there, you shouldn't go to their meeting. Right. I mean, you just shouldn't go because they're guaranteed to waste your time if they don't know why they're doing things and what they're trying to get done.
You brought up a good point, and there's something that I've been dealing with quite a bit in startups, which is a bit different from the corporate world. Corporate world, it's like mandatory. You got to go to these meetings and you just got to deal with it. But when you're in a startup and you have stakeholders and you have people that they want to be updated, right? Yeah. And you're more about getting work, like you said, getting work done. Yeah. Right. So let's say I'm getting work done. I'm physically hands-on getting work done. And people say, well, I want to talk to you about things. I want to discuss things. I want to get updates on things. To me, that's the waste of time because we're talking about 1-2 hour meetings where I'm just showing stuff and they're talking to me about stuff. And it's a back and forth discussion where I could be getting actual work done. So how do you feel about that?
Well, I think that's one of the big problems is just from a straight focus standpoint. Like if you're constantly, I mean, it's not just meetings, but attending to Slack and these other things, it's hard for you to stay focused, which is now, granted, you're working with startups. I work with a lot of big multinational companies. And one of the first things, because we do culture change, was tried to work with the senior team to figure out how to get rid of unnecessary reports, unnecessary approval process, unnecessary policies, and definitely unnecessary meetings. Because so many of them just could be killed on contact. And
so you mentioned culture. That's a big word for me, especially at a startup. How do you transform the culture at like the root cause of low productivity?
This is what we would do is we would focus on high stakes meetings that have to happen, decision-making meetings, strategy, planning meetings, because in many ways meetings, because we're going to spend so much time there, are the building blocks or the amplifier of the culture of the organization. So when I'm running a small founder-led startup, I want to be very lean on those and I want to know how to run them really well because that is going to eventually become the culture of my organization. That's where strategy decisions are made, planning, and really where our values either show up or don't show up. So that's where you intervene in changing the culture.
So I want to ask you a question because this is something that I've kind of implemented. I know I didn't invent this situation, but I feel like I've done this on my own and it's worked. Maybe you can tell me if I'm doing it right. We recently brought on say 25 interns and there's so many meetings, of course, onboarding. So what I did was I was like, let me try a different approach. Let me create an onboarding document and a whole bunch of onboarding tutorials, videos that I screen share where it shows all the different things that we're going to have them work on so that we can say, here's a whole bunch of videos, watch them first. Here's the document, read that first. And then if you need a meeting, it's to physically hands-on do the work together in a collaborative way.
Yeah.
Is that a good
I
methodology?
I think that's a very good use because the time we're together should be for real decision making, real conversations, things that can't be handled by watching videos or reading things or going through a PowerPoint deck. So I think that's a tremendous way because you're stripping out what we call the status update meetings, right?
Mm,
We've got a
I
team
hate
we're
those.
on. We meet weekly, bi-weekly. There's 7 agenda items, 17 people. 2 of the agenda items are relevant to me. The other 5, someone else is meeting.
That sounds terrible.
No, and that's why people, but there's sort of FOMO, right? People fear missing out. They want to, in big companies, want to be in the meetings because it's like something's going to happen. But smart leaders, I think, realize I'm not going to meetings unless
Yeah,
there's a darn good reason why I should be there.
makes a lot of sense. So let's talk about a smooth takeoff to make your meetings pop because that's something that it's so awkward when you first get to a meeting and everyone has to say hello to each other and like how's it going, wait for people to show up, and then you got to actually start.
Well, look, the metaphor we might use for a project, a task force, a meeting, a consulting engagement is the metaphor of a plane flight, right? You're in Philly, I'm in Denver. 3 parts to that meeting, 3 parts to that project, takeoff, flying, landing. Now,
Yeah,
if takeoff doesn't go well, right? Last time I was at DIA out here, it took 47 seconds from the time they hit the jets to wheels up.
nice.
If it doesn't go well, we're all dead. Now it's the same thing on our
That's no
projects
good.
and our meetings. If the beginning doesn't go well, it doesn't take a lot of time, we're all dead. It's a waste of time, which is this takeoff. You use the word pop, right? Because we teach a very simple model. So
Okay.
simple. Sounds obvious, called the POPRA model,
Okay.
which is you've got to get people clear on why they're here, the purpose, what they're
Yeah.
doing, the objectives, how they're going to run the meeting, the process or the agenda, get roles clear quickly, right? And get some agreements in place. So once we fly the plane, there's not turbulence. But if we haven't set it up well and taken off well, we're going to get all this turbulence, which is the dysfunction we all see in meetings. And the third place we get plane crashes, our second place, is on landing. And a
Oof.
lot of times people just drop out of the meeting. No one has any clue what just happened, where we're going from here. And the meeting was a waste of
Was a
time
waste
because
of
now
time.
there's
Yeah.
nothing happening between this meeting and our next meeting. So it's that simple in many ways.
I notice, and it's a shame I have to say this, but I notice that the meetings that I'm in that don't have that hands-on collaborative approach
Yeah.
are the ones that are a waste of time.
Yeah.
So I've gotten closer now to the point where those meetings don't happen anymore because I've been creating so many video screen share tutorials.
Yeah.
I think that that's really the best. Also, updating your team and your company on almost an every other day basis, like, bullet points of here's what's been going on, here's what's happening. Do you have any questions? Do you need help with anything? I like the whole, do you need help with anything? Walk me through collaboration a bit and how that's the best part of like leading a team.
Well, I mean, we run a program called, collaborative leadership, and it's what it is a facilitation skills program, virtually how to do this sitting on screens like we're on right now. And we ran it for decades, sitting in a room together, but the world's changed. But the truth is, collaboration requires the art of knowing how to hold space for all voices. And I don't know if you ever heard the agile term hippo decision making by chance. It stands for the highest paid person's opinion. It can often be the middle-aged white guy like me, senior vice president, comes into the meeting, thinks he's the smartest person on the call. Nobody says a word because they're like nobody's, and it could very well be that most junior person who may be speaking English as a second language, may be an introvert, may be a person of color who has exactly the expertise to help the hippo, the senior person, make the decision. But leaders don't know how to hold space, so we're hearing from everyone to make the right. So collaboration really is the art of holding space. So everyone gets to weigh in because people Patrick Lencioni says, if they don't weigh in, they're not going to buy it. Right?
Yeah.
And so that's what we teach people, the art of how to engage the right voices. Often we
Yeah.
have too many people at the meeting. They're not the right people to be there. And that's a different challenge with meetings.
One of the things I like to do, and again, I'm really bouncing these off you because I want to know, like, am I doing it right? Because a lot of people come to me for advice, and I'm not, an expert at building teams like you are, although I have built quite a few. So if I hold a meeting with my team, there's always an agenda. Number one, there's always like, here's what the goal that we're accomplishing on this meeting. Number one. Number two, I want to hear your opinions, your feedback, your suggestions on these points that I'm bringing up. Is there a better way to do it? Research it, figure it out, get back to me. 3, what do you have to, add to this? Is there anything you want to add that maybe I haven't thought of? Bring it out now. And then Q&A. Like, do you have any questions overall before we leave? That's usually how I run my meetings, and they seem to be going really well. Is that a good process, or is
I think the fact that you have clear objectives or goals for your meeting and an agenda, that's just the price of entry for being allowed to have a meeting. And then
corporations could learn from that, I think.
But the problem is, it's like, I'd say 90% of meetings, maybe they have an agenda, but most of the time, no one has any idea why they're there or what they're trying to get done.
That's my point.
Right. And I think there's different approaches to this. I like the way you're thinking about it, because I've looked at your background. I have all these startups in your background, right? So you're creating the culture you want in the organization with that mechanism or operating protocol of, let me put this in front of you. Here's what I want feedback on, right? And that's fine. Now, a tip I'm going to give your listeners.
Yeah, this is what I'm here for.
It seems obvious, but the neat thing about running virtual meetings, we have chat. Now, we all have been in those meetings where we ask questions into the screen, dead silence.
Right.
Right. Here's a tip for anyone. Pose the question, and then what we do is have a simultaneous chat. Give people the time to type their response in the chat, and don't let them hit enter, right? Give them time to put their response in, and they know they have to do something now because they're waiting. And we usually use the hand raised reaction emoji to say, all right, when you're ready to submit,
ready to talk. Yeah.
Because people are all like, oh, I better have something to say. And then you put a little header in and you let everyone stream in their ideas. That's how you get space for everyone. And you can do this so simply in virtual meetings by just using this simultaneous chat over and over. Because I got 10 people there, 2 or 3 carry the conversation, 2 or 3 say nothing. And you're like, I want to hear from those 2 or 3 people. So I want to use the chat to create some tension so everyone gets to weigh in. Just such a simple tool. People do not take advantage of it.
It's funny. So, the way that I've seen that happen in my meetings, it's not that exact way. I think I'm going to talk to my team about doing it, is while I'm showing something on screen or I'm talking about something, they'll just type something in the chat and I'll see it pop up. And when I'm done saying what I'm saying or showing what I'm saying, then I go to the chat and I look at it and say, okay, now I'll but holding it back is actually that's a very simple kind of tool but it makes sense, because instead of interrupting or kind of distracting the person talking, wait till he's done or she, and then hit the enter button. Then it pops up. It's like, okay, now I can, I like that. That's so good.
And because then the people who are less likely to have ever said anything, because it's going to be the same people doing the chatting.
Right.
But when you make it simultaneous and you slow it down enough to where people are like, oh my goodness, every hand has been raised, I better have something typed. You then let the group look at what's in the chat, and you as the leader can look for people you want to hear and say, talk to us about what you wrote in the chat there, expand on that. And it's the simplest way to hold space so that those voices, the introverts, the cool blue analyzing styles, they're never going to say things, or they're the most junior person, but they know things you don't know. And often the hippos, the senior people, are not mindful enough to realize, look, there's political hierarchy here. Yeah. No one's going to say anything unless you really slow it down enough to give them a place to engage.
And they're not in the trenches. The hippos are not in the trenches. They're not seeing the daily operations and the nitty-gritty that's really kind of happening behind the scenes. So if there's one simple thing you can leave everyone that's listening or watching, one simple thing leaders can do to improve team collaboration, what would be that one thing?
To improve collaboration, it'd be two things. And I've just given you the one. Use simultaneous chat. So simple. Two, create a culture where you're not allowed to have a meeting where the leader does not tell the group ahead of time why we're having the meeting, what we're doing, what the agenda is, and what the roles are. It's in many ways you can jumpstart changing the culture very quickly by eliminating many meetings, and then the ones you run are, to your point, really
Effective.
collaboration meetings.
Yeah.
They're there because we have to interact to make decisions.
Love it. Awesome. Thank you, Evan. And where can people find out more about you and your business?
Yeah, they can just Google me on LinkedIn or find me on LinkedIn, and all my information's up there. It'll be in your show notes.
Yep.
And we run a program to teach people high stakes collaborative leadership. If they're interested, all that information's there. We offer deep discounts to get people to give it a try.
Sweet.
And it is world class. So we'd love to see folks there. Jason, I appreciate your time.
Cool. And the website is terryschwartzassociates.com, right?
And put a /virtual behind it, which is more of our landing page.
Okay.
So
terryschwartzassociates.com/virtual, guys. Check it out.
No, that's it.
And get a hold of Evan on LinkedIn as well, Evan Unger, and we'll see you guys in the next episode.